Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Movie Mates video. I am Matthew, of course, joined by my wonderful co-host and best friend.
Callum.
Hey man, great to see you. On today's video, we're reviewing the latest episode of Wandavision, which is the penultimate episode of the series, episode 8. And yeah, I'm just gonna pass over to Callum to explain what was going on in this episode and the breakdown of what we're gonna be talking about. So yeah, off to you, mate.
So it'll be, as usual, full spoilers. We'd previously seen the revelation that Agnes is indeed Agatha Harkness. So within this episode, we get a bit of her backstory. We delve a bit into Wanda's past, things that we'd heard about before but never seen. I think it was very interesting. Uh,
Certainly.
I think both of us had some issues with the content, perhaps, because this is our longest episode yet, but I feel like probably the least was unearthed since like episodes 1 and 2.
Yeah, no, absolutely agreed, absolutely, and yeah, as Callum said, full spoilers for this episode, of course, and yeah, this video will be added to our Wandavision playlist where you can check out our reviews up to this point, and yeah, as always, time codes on our email, moviematespodcast@gmail.com is in the description if you want to ask us any podcast suggestions or questions, and yeah, I mean, I'll pass over to you, Callum, if you want to open the floor with your thoughts on the episode.
Well, I'd mentioned previously the Jack Schaefer, the showrunner, had said that this is a 6 hour story. So with this episode being a disappointing, I think 40 is it 50, 42 or 52 minutes,
With I think without credits, it's even less. I think with it's maybe 40 minutes. Yeah,
or is
about
it
40. Yeah,
is 46 or something?
yeah.
Like
46 was the
yeah,
correction.
without the credits, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely, always a disappointing runtime. But here, if it is a 6 hour story, if she means that with credits, then there's still an hour left. If she means without credits, there's 2 hours left. So we're either seeing a super long episode next week or a movie, or she's chatting shit.
I think she's probably chatting shit. I think I'm absolutely gutted. Like this episode was so short. Like I know it's quite a long episode for this show, but by a standard TV show, this is just an average episode length, I think. And I would be so unlikely for them to do a movie, I think. But if they did it and just out of nowhere, I would absolutely love that because it feels like a movie anyway, kind of with the show the way it's shot. So, what do you think, mate? Do you think the next episode is going to be a film or not?
I think not. I think I agree with you. Chatting shit is my guess. I think in advance of watching the finale, if I get a spare, 4 hours, I'm probably gonna binge the series up to this point, so I can
Yeah,
hopefully see whether it has the watchability or the rewatchability, and see whether the
definitely.
finale is as mind blowing a conclusion as it's anticipated to be. Do you think you see a lot of rewatchability here?
I think the earlier episodes certainly. Like I think though, once it gets to the episodes, my worry would be that the show just feels totally different from the halfway point. I guess that is intentional, as you break down Wanda's world and stuff like that. But I don't know. I hope I think it does have potential to have rewatchability to it, but because obviously this show is based on a lot of twists and stuff as to what's going on, I think that potentially could ruin it. But no, I think one day I definitely will go back and rewatch it. Yeah, for sure.
And we've talked a little bit so far about these sort of revelations made within this episode, and
Yeah.
in the sense that there aren't too many. There was a lot of confirmation of suspicions, but there wasn't really any, you know, bombshells, as we said, aside from the ones that, of course, blew up Wanda and Pietro's home,
Yeah.
killing their parents.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, you
Literally,
know,
yeah, I know.
but here,
Yeah.
we do get a few pieces of I think vital information. The first is that fake Pietro was working for Agatha Harkness, not with her. She says that he was just her eyes and ears, which seems to suggest he's not really probably a character of significance. People had suspected that he's Agatha Harkness's comic book son, Nicholas Scratch, which I feel like is probably the most logical
Yeah.
option, because I don't think he could conceivably be Mephisto or Nightmare or anyone of significance if he's an underling.
Yeah, 100%. It's gonna be interesting to see how he had speed abilities, whether Agnes gave them to him or not. And yeah, there's a lot, as you said, there's a lot of things explained here. Fake Pietro obviously belongs to Agatha, like his underling. The sitcom genre is I say interestingly explained. It feels like they needed an excuse, so they just said, yeah, I want to like some sitcoms. Do you know what I mean? It was just out of nowhere in this episode for me, anyway. But yeah, I thought it was quite nice as well. Obviously, you got like the Dick Van Dyke Show and stuff like that here, and yeah, of course, obviously it's confirmed that Wanda had sort of created this sort of not reality, but the hex bubble, I'll call it, which is sort of a little bit disappointing for me. I was expecting potentially something else. You know, potentially we could get that in the next episode. I hope so. But yeah, it just sort of confirmed what we already knew, I think, from the last episode.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good that, I sort of like that confirmation. It means that she is responsible, but it was clearly a subconscious decision. But what sort of baffled me was that, we've seen her before, break out of the illusion, in episode 3, whenever she threw Monica out of the hex.
Yeah.
And, that sort of means that at that moment she was aware that she was controlling all of these people, where, she could have just put a tiny little bubble around that one house and lived her domestic dream with Vision. She didn't really need to take the town hostage.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I know, 100%. And I
And if
think,
she can like move the border
yeah.
of the hex, she could have also, pulled it in whenever
Oh
she
yeah.
sort of realized what she
Yeah.
was doing.
Yeah, I thought that as well. I thought that as well. And I think for me, what was kind of interesting in this episode, it kind of seems like when obviously we get an interesting Agatha flashback to Salem in Massachusetts, about, which is, I suppose it's well known, that town, that city, for being about like witchcraft, those kind of things. And I think it's interesting because it seems like these sorcerers at the time, like they have abilities, like it's quite strange. So I don't know, I did actually quite like that. I get the flashback. It was very different. I wasn't expecting it to go, but I think it's like 1672 or something it goes back to, so it's a while ago. So yeah, I really enjoyed that flashback actually.
Yeah, I found it really interesting because it was a bit subverting of what we know about actual history, and that was,
Yeah.
people who, obviously were witches, that accusation. Where here, it's actually, her own coven persecuting her rather than, the townspeople that are suspicious of her.
Yeah,
And I was
definitely.
glad that the flashback was brief because I think that this whole show, with such a brief runtime, I think you need to be, very sort of pragmatic about, the
Oh
usage
yeah,
of screen
100%.
time. So I was glad they were brief, and I think we saw all that we needed to.
Yeah, 100%. On the subject of flashbacks, obviously you'd mentioned that we see little aspects into Wanda's life. Obviously, we see first of all like her and her family in the war-torn Sokovia, and then which obviously involves sadly the death of her parents, and then I think we move on to Hydra, which I was disappointed they didn't bring the actor who plays Baron von Strucker back. I thought that would have been pretty cool. Or maybe Aaron Taylor Johnson briefly. I don't know, because they do kind of explain that Agatha was
They
like,
really
yeah,
don't want to pay Aaron Taylor Johnson.
I know, because I actually thought the way they explained it, like, yeah, he's full of bullet holes and stuff, and his body's in a different country. I was like, I mean, that's a good explanation, but you're a witch, like you can just remove the bullets and stuff, can't you? Like, come on. But yeah, they just don't want to cast him, do they? They don't want to bring him back. It's disappointing.
Like they keep finding loopholes not to bring him in, and then they don't even show him in like the protest archive footage.
Yeah,
Like they just clearly don't
yeah,
want to pay him. It's
yeah,
like
yeah.
he's, I think, as integral to her backstory as Vision is. She,
Oh
like
yeah,
because
definitely.
we learned by the end of this episode that we assumed because of what Hayward told us that she had taken Vision's body, changed his molecular structure to now be alive. But we actually learned by the end of the episode that she resurrected him without his body. In the scene, she seems to sort of siphon off like residual Mind Stone energy. We see this sort of yellow
Yeah.
projection, from her red chaos magic. And I think that explains why he couldn't survive outside the hex. But I really don't know why Hayward is lying about how Vision was taken. Because
Yeah.
we learn later in the episode that he wasn't.
Yeah.
So
What
I don't really know what his thought process is there.
wasn't there like didn't Hayward show like security footage of like Wanda breaking in to steal his body, or was that what was that? Was that just faked, or was that from a different angle?
It was just that she had broken the glass and then dropped down into the chamber, but that was for her to say her goodbye. But they
Oh
just
right,
cut it off
okay.
and said, yeah,
She
she
stole
took
it.
the body. But
Bastard.
then I don't know why he's tracking, Wanda's vision within the bubble if he already has vision and he only needed her magic to resurrect him. So I don't really know why he, maybe he's trying to recover the Mind Stone, but I can't imagine that it's. I mean,
Yeah.
is it the real Mind Stone? Because we learned that she can create things out of nothing, but is she powerful enough, do you think, to recreate an Infinity Stone as an exact copy?
Well, it's a risky business, I think, with the MCU having a character now that can resurrect dead people. Like, it just makes it like if she can resurrect Vision, I don't know what else she can't resurrect. If do you know what I mean? So I think it's a very risky business having her that powerful, and that's what makes me think she's either gonna something's gonna happen to her abilities or something in the next episode, or something's gonna happen where she can't do that anymore. Because it's I don't know. It's always very risky for me when you have such a perfect excuse to resurrect or bring back characters and they never do it. So yeah, I don't know. And, one
Yeah.
thing, yeah, one thing that you mentioned as well is that Hayward is obviously building his own vision. You have no idea how disappointed I was when I realized I thought they were it's going to be Ultron. They're going to bring back Ultron or something, and they're just like, no, it's just a different looking vision. Like I think that was a perfect opportunity to say, have a Ultron there or something. I don't know.
Yeah, no, the resurrected vision like worries me massively, with where they're going in this last episode, because
Yeah,
we sort of see the motif of like resurrected characters a lot, where they're sort of this like zombified form,
yeah, not
where they don't really
themselves.
have
Yeah,
any of their sort of mental faculties that make that exactly makes them themselves. And if next week's episode is like really short, I just don't think they're going to be able to support all the storylines that we want to see. And like realistically, we want a big reveal. Whether Mephisto like whether it's
yeah.
Mephisto or Nightmare, I think we want Ralph to be someone big. We want Senor Scratchy to either be Ralph or be a big
Yeah.
character.
Dottie as well.
I think
That character's unexplained.
yeah, we need answers, and realistically, we want Mephisto.
Yeah, I think so, 100%. And I kind of felt like this episode really missed Monica, Jimmy, and Darcy, especially Monica, given that the end credit scene of the last episode was pretty integral. And then they just haven't,
Hmm.
there's just nowhere to be seen here, which kind of indicates to me that potentially the next episode is going to pick up with the Monica storyline. I just thought it was very, very strange. This episode just didn't have any of them in there. What do you think?
I think if next week is 2 hours, that that they have more than enough time. But if they really skimp on the runtime, I feel like it's going to be a problem. But yeah, I agree with you. I think that is probably where it's going to pick up. I sort of wanted to mention something that you said earlier, which of course we're confirmed that Wanda has this chaos magic to
Yeah,
resurrect anything, create something from nothing, like she's clearly done with the
sure.
children, or whether it's the comic origin of sort of taking the shards of the soul of Mephisto. But here, it seems like she's able to create something from nothing. And I do think that power is too dangerous for a character to have, too big of an OP for
I agree.
a
Yeah,
sort of grounded character. So I really think they should have done it in a different way. Here we see that she didn't use Vision's body, and that she created it from nothing. Using Mind Stone energy, and it was the Mind Stone that sort of like enriched her powers to make her incredibly powerful. So I feel like it would have been better if she had you know, if she had taken his body, brought it back to life, but she was puppeteering his corpse, and to actually, by the end of the series, realize that she could bring him back properly with this
yeah,
chaos magic,
definitely.
but she'd have to use the Mind Stone energy that gives her this sort of OP,
Yeah.
power.
Oh,
So
yeah,
I
definitely.
feel like
Bit
if
of
it
a
had been that
sacrifice.
trade-off to have Vision back, that maybe would have worked a bit.
It's a
Well, worked more to my preference, not better.
I think that's a great shout actually, and because in this episode, what we were kind of saying earlier as well is that when we see different corridors into Wanda's life, it kind of is explained by Agatha that Wanda was kind of not born with these powers, but like the powers were maybe dormant until she touched the Mind Stone, which kind of makes me think that potentially that could be the Mind Stone or just the Infinity Stones in general could be a potential trigger for mutants, given that half the world's population was removed. So technically, if half the world's population has been affected by the Infinity Stones, half the population could now be mutants. I think so. Potentially, I think that's
Mm.
if you're going to introduce mutants, that would be a potential way to do it. I think I'm not too sure. Like I saw a few comments on that with the Mr. Sunny Movies post. I just wanted to bring it up. And what do you think? Do you think she was? Does the episode explain that she was had these powers, or they were dormant, or where do you think it was going?
Yeah, it's indicated, and I believe that Wanda was the one to actually stop the second bomb from going off. When it hit their house. That sort of Agus, it's sort of Agatha Harkness's assertion that that's what did.
Yeah,
That's what happened. She calls her a baby witch, and I feel like it has to be mutants. Like they have. I don't think they're going to address this for maybe a year or two, just to sort of give them a firm break between
yeah, for
Dark
sure.
Phoenix and between WandaVision. I think when they were constructing this, they probably didn't even have the rights back, because they've probably been working on this, I think, since 2017, 2018. Kevin Feige works very, very far ahead.
He
But
does.
when it
Yeah.
comes to mutants, yeah, I definitely agree. I think you know in the MCU, it's always a serum. The almost I don't think anyone else within the MCU has been born with powers. Like aside from even the Inhumans, need the Terrigen crystals to sort of unlock their
Exactly.
powers.
Yeah.
So if here, yeah, the answer to unlocking dormant mutant abilities is the Infinity Stones, like the Terrigen crystals were for the Inhumans. I feel like that makes perfect sense,
Yeah.
and it excuses the fact that they weren't, sort of an established, kind of race of
Yeah.
being. But
Yeah.
one big issue I think with introducing mutants to the MCU is that who cares? Like, the whole thing about mutants in the comics is that they're persecuted and people think they're freaks, and that's why they have to sort of seclude themselves in hiding. Like Xavier's school is, it's sort of a hideout, to sort of hide from the rest of society because they'll be persecuted. Like, I
Yeah.
don't really see how that would happen, in a universe full of superheroes that are beloved.
Yeah. That's why I quite like the X-Men as well, because they're not your typical heroes. Like, public hates them almost. And yeah, I think that's also with the risk of like having, if they do go the Infinity Stone way and say like half the population of mutants, like usually in the comics I think the mutants are a much smaller number than that, so that's why there's kind of an imbalance there. There's far more humans. But i think I think for me, I think you're right. Like, who would care? Because like the MCU is filled with heroes anyway with abilities. So I think a potential route for it is House of M. I think that's where they might be going with it here, potentially. And maybe Doctor Strange's Multiverse of Madness or something. I'm not too sure, but I think I think the insight into what is past says a lot, because I think that was almost like an origin story before her big time in like a couple movies or something. I really think and also, yeah, the problem as well with this episode, I think, is the rebuilt vision. Like, I think it's certainly what I don't think anyone had predicted that. It's But I think it's one of those things where it could just be like a Superman situation in Justice League, where it's sort of it's good for a couple scenes, but then it's just, where do you go with that? Do you know what I mean? So I don't know where they're gonna go with it.
Yeah, and we've got the answer that, she has basically constructed her dream version of Vision,
Yeah,
with, every, imperfection that there may or may not have been, wiped out. It's what she
yeah,
remembers of Vision, what she loved about Vision, and that's, the entire embodiment
definitely.
of what she's created.
Yeah,
So he's not an independent being, capable of, well, I mean, he is clearly capable of independent thought, but, I don't think he could escape loving her. I think,
yeah,
she has such tight a hold that, it's
yeah.
it's
She
not
does.
conceivable that, that he can decide to, stop being in that relationship.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that's a really smart way of putting it as well. And it goes back to the thing we were saying. Like, it's weird that she would create Vision with the opportunity for him to have the power of deduction. Do you know what I mean? It's quite
Mm.
strange. But yeah, anyway, probably a little bit of a plot hole. But yeah,
And previously in the MCU, the positive thing with television is that, you have an extended runtime to tell a story that, can't possibly be told within one film, especially a team up film, because those are the only appearances that the Wanda and Vision have had so far.
yeah,
And really the only scene of chemistry that we had seen before, just them being a couple in Avengers Infinity War, was, sort of like sexy Papa Cash flirting scene in Captain America Civil War. And then
yeah,
just by the time of Infinity War, we skipped ahead 2 years. They were a couple. That was it. We
yeah,
didn't really get to see any of the chemistry. But here we flash back to, what Wanda and Vision sharing sort of tender moment, where Vision kind of, shares, his thoughts about loss and grief.
yeah.
And I think it's a really sweet scene, and
It
it's
is.
it's full of chemistry. I think, it's where I've been most convinced that they would be conceivably a couple, despite him being, not a human. But, people are always, I think, quite concerned with whether Vision has a dick. They've never wondered, has he got soft human lips? Because I
Yeah,
was
that's a
thinking,
good point.
I was like,
Quite
they're they're
robotic,
de-
you
they're
think?
definitely gonna kiss, but is she just like lips in
Metal.
some metal? I don't know.
Vibranium, yeah, I know. That's a good point. Actually, I never actually considered that. Yeah, because his body would be quite rigid, you'd imagine. And during that scene, it reminded me of the bit in Civil War where Captain America and Scarlet Witch have a little chat, and I was like, maybe they're gonna have Chris Evans just walk into the room or something for it, like, just because it's very similar to that scene. Obviously, it's the same room or whatever. I don't know. I'm just disappointed there was no major cameo in this episode. It just feels like too late in the day to have it in the next episode as a, whoa, look at this cameo kind of thing. But maybe potentially it could happen. I think it's my money now is in Doctor Strange. I think it has to be. Mate.
I mean, Paul Bettany has said it's not Doctor Strange, or at least that's not the one he was talking about. But, you mentioned, I think it was off podcast, you'd seen some suspicions that Paul Bettany was talking about himself. Now that we're aware that there are two visions existing at the one time, I'm genuinely worried, Matthew,
Yeah,
because
I am
that
too,
is
Callum.
100% a thing that Paul Bettany would say. He was like, yeah, there's some real fireworks. Someone I've wanted to work with all my life. He
Myself.
specifically said all my life. You know,
Yeah.
so it's gonna be him, isn't it?
It is. It's gonna be Paul Bettany. It just is. But hey, you know, it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility for him to say that. Like, it's a classic Bettany line in many respects. Yeah, I think Doctor Strange will make an
That
appearance
would
here.
piss off everyone, I
It
think.
would. I think it would. I think it would. And like, I think if it's not Doctor Strange, then I don't know who it could be. I really don't. But I was a little bit disappointed with this episode. I think the last couple episodes, although they've been fantastic by normal TV standards, like I absolutely love them, just for the quality of the show in general, they've been it's not hitting the heights of the sort of the midpoint in the season where I thought it was really good for me. Well, that being said, it's still a fantastic TV show. You know, it's still amazing. But I don't know. I just hope the next episode can be the best yet.
Yeah, and you know, we'd sort of discussed Hayward a little bit, and you know, my final comment was, you know, whenever we see, you know, how Wanda, you know, visited and said goodbye to Vision,
Mhm.
and you know, we see that they've been dismantling Vision, you know, to either, I mean, you know, they sort of suggest that, you know, they're investigating, you know, because he's a sentient weapon, but they're clearly trying to get him back online to become a sentient weapon,
Yeah.
you know, for their purposes. I feel like it has to be something more, like, because why would they need him? You know, I feel like, you know, they have every weapon conceivable. You know, who would they want to use Vision against? You
Yeah.
know, I suppose you know, they may do a flip around, and you think that he's this kind of, you know, shady figure, but maybe he's trying to get Vision back online to then take out bigger threats like he conceives Wanda to be. You know,
Mhm.
it may be that you know, he wants to use this rebuilt Vision against her. You know, for good or for ill. You know, depending on how you see it, I guess. You know, 'cause she has, as we now know, you know, taken over this town, essentially kidnapped these people, brainwashed them. You know, so I,
Mhm.
I mean, there is ill intent
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
You know, and it's selfish, but you know, I suppose, you know, using the person that she loves against her, I feel like that's what next week's going to be,
Yeah.
which
Because
I'm not a huge fan of.
the original recipe Vision, if you said in the show
Hmm.
anyway, is still alive. Like pretty much, isn't he? Like the one that she's created. Sorry, the one that she's created is still alive, right?
Yeah, you know, he's still in, like, you know, he flew away from Darcy. I don't know where he is right now. Like, did we last leave him just flying out of the van to then go and see Wanda?
I think we did. I think we did. I think the next episode is going to be. It's going to have to be a conflict between the two antagonists, which would probably be Agatha versus Wanda, and then Vision versus Vision. I would imagine that's how it's going to play out. And then maybe in there, maybe like Monica versus Hayward. I don't know. I hope it doesn't become that because like I don't know. I was just really disappointed with the reveals in this episode. Although it was a very well constructed episode, it just wasn't for me. It wasn't a bit of me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was really hoping this was going to be like, you know, premium complex television, and you know, the first three episodes, you know, really sort of you know, set that standard, and it had me convinced that that's what this show was going to be.
Yeah.
But if it sort of divulges into like predictable, you know, cliche sci-fi, you know, if, you know, you know, hero versus villain, you know, I feel like there's more complexity here
There is.
that's
There absolutely is,
possible,
mate.
and you know, I think if that is all that it is, I will be disappointed.
Yeah.
But, you know, I mentioned previously, you know, that Hayward is allegedly like dismantling Vision. Were they dismantling him for 5 years?
Yeah.
Because he you know, he died in Wakanda in 2018, and you know, they're still pulling him apart in 2023.
Yeah, like how long does that take it? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
like,
sure,
you know, and it looks like, because I mean, we know, of course, you know, half the people were snapped away, and
it
then
looks like they've already started.
I think Hayward. Yeah, and then I think Hayward says that, you know, he was only able to keep like a third of the staff even when you know, even after the snap. So he has a sixth of his workforce. But I mean, you need like two people to operate, you know, like a chainsaw, and you know, another you know, dismantling process. You know, if you're so desperate to find the answers, you wouldn't keep it on hold for 5 years.
Hayward, what are you doing, mate? I know, like it's quite strange that I'm just thinking actually, yeah, 5 years, trying to deconstruct Vision. That is weird. Like to be fair, the new Vision, it looks pretty cool. Like it is, I suppose it's like from the comics, isn't it? Like the white Vision where he's like
Hmm.
not himself. So I suppose that's a little reference there. But yeah, I don't have any more notes on WandaVision episode 8. Mate, anything from yourself?
No, nothing further for me, Matthew.
Well, that leads us on to ratings then. What would you give this episode out of 10, bud?
I think it's far superior to last episode. But still, since episode 3, they haven't met that standard. Since then, I think the sword episode in episode 4 sort of set a precedent of this need to like balance the Westview storyline with with the sword storyline, and I think they're just not really comparable in regards to interest.
Definitely.
I think the government sides of things are just never as interesting in a superhero property. Of course, if we're talking about any other genre, and it would be fully appropriate, but here you're here for you know some thought-provoking sitcom content,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
sort of a mystery that's being built. But I mean, I suppose this is an admirable mystery that's been built. It's just that it was so easy to solve. Unless they really shock us next week, I'm not. I'm underwhelmed.
I'm
I
underwhelmed as
thought it
well.
was a fun episode overall, and I think it's one of the better flashback episodes I've seen before. But the show does continue to be very predictable. Next week, if it has some reveals, I think they can really recover this, make it very rewatchable. Because of course you have to have a strong start, middle, end. Episodes 1 and 2, fantastic. Halloween episode, fantastic. If they can have a banger finale, I think they'll have absolutely recovered any
Million
falters or
percent.
missteps that they've possibly had.
Hmm.
I just think really the weekly release was a mistake, because I think all the speculation has ruined it.
Oh yeah,
We
it's been
knew,
ruined by that. 100%.
as soon as Catherine Hahn was cast as Agnes, people knew that was Agatha Harkness. We've known that she was playing Agatha Harkness for a year and a half. So a year before we even got to see over a year before we even got to see this show. We knew exactly who Catherine Hahn was playing, and then that's meant to be the big villain reveal of episode 7.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
know.
you
I know.
you watch this for so many hours, and then that's meant to
100%.
be a revelation. It was just so disappointing.
Yeah, I know, and I think this show has been. It's one of the few shows I can remember certainly being ruined by speculation. You know what I mean? I like the.
Mm.
I think with certain seasons of superhero shows, like I'd imagine like The Flash, because it's so much longer than this show. I think it has time to recover that and still surprise us. Obviously that sort of carries two sort of season stories, one in the first half, one in the second half, but I think for me, because this is a mini series, it's quite short. The episodes are so short, and it's still released weekly. The speculation has killed it, mate. It really has. Like, it's still a fantastic show. It still has surprised me here and there, but not like I think if and it's impossible to boycott that information because it is everywhere online. Do you know what I mean? It's absolutely everywhere. So it's just a pity. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a very solid episode. So what would you give it?
Yeah, I think it is definitely superior to last week's episode. I think Catherine Hahn's performance was definitely cemented as better, more likable. Although her character kind of just dissolved into sort of like yelling and anger by the end.
Yeah, she
She
did.
she wasn't really the sort of comedic figure that we've seen her to be anymore. Which I think is unfortunate, because you kind of not utilizing Catherine Hahn to her full potential. I think
Yeah,
I'm
agreed.
currently bleeding.
No, you're
Let me just wipe the blood off
no,
my
you're
face
okay.
quickly.
No problem.
I think by the end of the episode, Catherine Hahn had just sort of dissolved into this, sort of angry persona, where we'd seen her
Yeah.
be very comedic before. And, I think in that, performance, I just think the episode didn't allow her to be her full potential. But, that being said, not as good as the highest heights of this season, but certainly better than last week. I'd give the episode an 8.5.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect way of summarizing it there, buddy, to be honest with you. And I feel like although underwhelming in certain reveals, I think this is a very well constructed episode narrative wise. It is a lot of soft and sweet scenes for the show. And yeah, I think hopefully the next episode will be an absolute banger. I really hope so. So I give this episode a 9. I think I give it a 9. Yeah, I mean that wraps up our review of the penultimate episode of WandaVision. Thanks very much, Callum, for today. Stay tuned next week, guys. We'll be wrapping up. Probably be a bit of a longer episode, as we're probably going to conclude our thoughts on the series. Where it's going to go. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's a podcast, to be honest with you. But yeah, stay tuned, guys, next week. And thanks to everyone who's watched. Please be sure to like, subscribe, comment your thoughts below. And yeah, hope you're all safe and well. Hope your family and friends are all safe and well too. Take care, everyone, and bye bye.
Bye.